The Champagne Fairs, Bank of Venice. In 1168, Alfonso II of Aragon, stepfather of Roger Raymond Trencavel, known to Grail lore as Percival, reached an agreement, the Treaty of Sangsa, with Sancho VI of Navarre, 1132–1194, whose daughter, Blanche of Navarre, married Theobald III of Champagne, the son of Henry I of Champagne and Marie of France, thus uniting two important dynastic branches, the Plantagenets involved in the creation of the Grail legends, and the Iberian families involved in the Reconquista and the defense of the Cathars. Blanche of Navarre, who had good relations with Cluny and the Cistercians, would also play a leading role in the Champagne Fairs, in a region closely associated with the Templars. Henry I of Champagne's uncle was Henry of Blois, abbot of Glastonbury Abbey and Bishop of Winchester, who was closely associated with the development the legends of the Holy Grail. Henry of Blois was the son of a leader of the Prince's Crusade, Stephen of Blois, and William the Conqueror's daughter Adela, and a step-brother of Templar founder, Hugh of Champagne. Genealogy of Blanche of Champagne. Geoffrey II, Count of Perchy, d. 1100. Rotro III, Count of Perchy, before 1080–1144, plus Matilda Fitzroy, Countess of Perchy, an illegitimate daughter of King Henry I of England. Philippa, married Elias II, Count of Maine, brother of Geoffrey Plantagenet, Count of Anjou. Rotro III plus Hawise, daughter of Walter of Salisbury. Stephen du Perchy, 1137/8, 1169, Archbishop of Palermo, hired Joachim of Fiori. Margaret plus Henry de Beaumont, 1st Earl of Warwick. Rotro, Archbishop of Rouen. Juliana du Perchy plus Gilbert, Lord of Diagle. Marguerite de Lagle plus Garcia Ramirez, King of Navarre, son of Ramiro Sanchez and Cristina, D. of El Cid. Sancho VI of Navarre plus Sancha of Castile, D. of Alfonso VII of Leon and Castile. Sancho VII plus Constance of Toulouse, D. of Raymond VI of Toulouse plus Beatrice of Béziers, and of Roger Raymond Trencavel, called Perceval by Wolfram von Eschenbach. Berengaria Sanchez plus Richard the Lionheart. Blanche of Champagne plus Theobald III, Count of Champagne, son of Henry I of Champagne plus Marie of France, sister of Richard the Lionheart, who hosted Walter Map, author of the Skull of Sidon legend, and sponsored Grail author Chrétien de Troyes. Blanche plus Sancho III of Castile, S. of Alfonso VII of Leon and Castile plus Berengaria of Barcelona. Alfonso VIII of Castile plus Eleanor of England, sister of Richard the Lionheart. Margaret of Navarre plus William I of Sicily, S. of Roger II of Sicily plus Elvira of Castile, D. of Alfonso VI of Leon and Castile plus Zaida, Muslim princess. Brother of Constance, Queen of Sicily, mother of Frederick II, Holy Roman Emperor. William II of Sicily plus Joan Plantagenet, S. of Richard Lionheart, later married Raymond VI of Toulouse. Mathilde plus Raymond of Turin, who was a fellow crusader in the following of Raymond IV of Toulouse. According to Janet Abu-Lughod, in Before European Hegemony, the period between 1250 and 1350 AD, following the Crusades, represented a critical turning point in world history, through the proliferation of an international trade economy that developed through the Champagne Fairs, that stretched all the way from northwestern Europe to China. Their confrontations in the East brought to Western Europe a great deal of skill and learning. The famous medieval Champagne Fairs at Troyes began as a result of the increased trade traffic between Europe, the Mediterranean, and the Middle East. Thus, explains Abu-Lughod, although the Crusades eventually failed, they had a significant consequence. They were the mechanism that reintegrated northwestern Europe into a world system from which she had become detached after the fall of Rome. 2. The King of France granted the privileges of the Champagne Fairs to the Templars. 3 historians acknowledged that Templar influence was a key factor behind these popular fairs, as they were the wealthiest organization in Western Europe at the time. 4 The Templars' house in Provence, in Champagne, was one of the most important preceptors in northern France. The Templars gained a great deal from the fairs, either by acting through agents, as suppliers of merchandise, or as shippers and transporters of the various goods on offer. Along with the king, the counts of Champagne had also given the Templars the right to levy tolls on produce entering the fairs. Needing more for the Crusades, the Templars steadily increased their share of the taxation levied on sales at the fairs. 5. Through the influence of the Templars, the fairs showed the first appearance in Europe of the use of credit transactions, with letters that promised full payment of a particular debt at the next fair. Between the beginning of the 12th century and the end of the 13th, signaled by the fall of Acre in 1291, a competitive alliance connected northern Europe, through the Italian intermediaries in Venice and Genoa, to the pre-existing circuits of commerce that joined the Middle East with India and China. 6. Having begun as an autonomous outpost of the Byzantine Empire, Venice developed into a city-state between the 9th to the 12th century. The city became an imperial power following the Fourth Crusade, which had veered off course and culminated in capturing and sacking Constantinople in 1204, and establishing the short-lived Latin Empire. Situated on the Adriatic Sea, Venice had long traded with the Byzantine Empire and the Muslim world, leading it to become the most prosperous city in all of Europe by the late 13th century. The fairs became meeting places and centers for commercial traders from Italy and Flanders as well as northern and southern France and Germany. Spices, silk, brocades, damascene blades, porcelain, and a variety of luxury goods previously unknown to the West became highly prized. The towns provided huge warehouses, still to be seen at Provence. Furs and skins traveled in both directions, from Spain, Sicily, and North Africa in the south via Marseilles. 7. Goods converged from Spain, traveling along the well-established pilgrim route from Santiago de Compostela and from Germany. 8. To cross the Alps, the caravans of pack mules made their way over the Mont Cenis Pass, a journey that took more than a month from Genoa to the fair cities, along one of the varied options of the Via Francigena. 9. During the so-called Dark Ages, the Italian ports never lost their continuity nor their connection with the East. The Italians were indispensable to the fairs for their supply of goods imported from the Orient, either directly from North Africa and the Middle East, or through Muslim intermediaries, from the Far East. 10. Fernand Braudel claims that the true originality of the Champagne fairs was in the money market and the precocious workings of credit on display there, which were primarily in the hands of the Italians. 11. Their equipment included a banco, Italian for bench, the origin of our modern word for banking. When the Crusades were launched at the close of the 11th century, the general commercial abilities of the Venetians secured to them the chief agency of the Crusaders, and the profits of this business were so great as to lead to the establishment of the Bank of Venice in 1157, under the guarantee of the state. 12. The international and above all most of the modern aspects of the Champagne fairs were controlled, on the spot or at a distance, by Italian merchants whose firms were often huge concerns. 13. This was a time of further urbanization in Flanders and France, which had access to the western Mediterranean through Marseille, Aigues-Mortes, Montpellier, and particularly the central seaport of Genoa, and the Rhine, which provided a connection to the North Sea from Venice. 14. At first the Europeans had little to offer in exchange, except for slaves, precious metals, wood, and furs, but demand in the Middle East stimulated production, particularly the fine wooden cloth. This stimulus resulted in the Renaissance in agriculture, mining, and finally manufacturing in Europe during the 12th and 13th century. Europe joined the long-distance trade system that extended through the Mediterranean into the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, and into the Indian Ocean and through the Strait of Malacca to teach China.